I was asked by Keke to join his project to find sponsorship for Mika. The world, he was coming from Monaco and private jets, and I came from a researcher with no money, and but we I think we had the same ideas. That was a golden era in Finland with Mika Häkkinen, Mika Salo, JJ Lehto.
Don't feel obliged to answer this on behalf of the entire nation of Finland, but I think everybody wants to know, what is it about Finland that makes fantastic drivers?
Emma Kimiläinen is absolutely one of the most talented people I have ever met in my life.
Hello, this is F1 Blag, and welcome to the latest episode of Georgie's Stripping the Dipping podcast. And I want to emphasise Georgie here because I think in the 3 seasons of this show, I've only really recommended one guest. Okay, it was Miles Rowe, not a bad call. But week in, week out, Georgie finds incredible stories from all over the world, and today is no exception. Bjorn Stenbacka has a relationship with motorsport dating back to the early 1990s. His story is interwoven with the fortunes of Finnish drivers in Formula 1, from Keke Rosberg to Mika Häkkinen. In fact, towards the end of the episode, you'll also hear a story about W Series race winner Emma Kimiläinen. There's so much to this episode, and I know you're going to enjoy it. So without further ado, Bjorn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm fine, thank you. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be in the show.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you. And the first thing we ask all of our guests is, how would you introduce yourself to someone new? You're talking to our listeners now. Who is Bjorn Stenbacka?
Well, I'm a Finn, first of all. Everybody following Formula One knows that some of the best Formula One drivers ever comes from Finland. It's a small country, and we are really interested in Formula One, especially after Mika Häkkinen won the World Championships. Then the Formula One fever really started in Finland, and I have been involved for many years in different kind of projects that are related to Formula One, and I'm I have been on a long journey, on a long Formula One journey from the early 90s, as you said. So yeah.
No, well, I look forward to hearing about that journey. And we always start with, what is your first motorsport memory as a child? Do you have any sort of first memories?
Yeah, it's I wasn't that interested in motorsports actually, and as I said, the Finns started to really follow Formula One maybe early 90s. We had Keke Rosberg, who won the World Championship, and that was, it was a shock to Finns. The Finns usually just followed rally, and we have had all these rally world champions for a long time. So my first memories comes from following, Keke Rosberg and his journey to a world championship that surprised everybody, I think, in Finland.
Yeah, I mean, I think he surprised many people around the world. Am I right in saying maybe he won one race that season, but was just extremely consistent? And beat some very, very big names, So
he did.
A huge achievement.
He did.
And
yes.
You did all of the research for us because your LinkedIn is very descriptive, because what it describes here is that, of course, Keke Rosberg was managing JJ Lehto and Mika Häkkinen, and your first involvement in and around motorsport came when Mika Hakkinen was trying to enter the sport. So could you tell us a bit
true.
about that? Yeah.
Keke was trying to find a budget to and to find a seat for Mika in Formula One. It was a difficult project, and he needed that funding also from Finland. And I was at that time at university doing research, and I had started to actually do the research around sponsorship. And I was asked by Keke to join his project to find sponsorship for Mika. And my role was basically to find data, to find valuable arguments for why Finnish industry companies should sponsor Mika in Formula One. It was a difficult task, I must say, because if you look at Formula One today, and there are no Finnish partners, none, and hasn't been for a couple of years now. But at that time, it was even more difficult. And but actually, we managed to get a couple of companies from Finland. One of them was Neste, oil and gas company, and they actually partnered or sponsored both Mika and JJ, and had been also with Keke. So it was a good contact he had there, but he didn't find the money actually that he was trying to find, but at least he got something. And with that budget from Finland also, I think Mika's seat at Team Lotus at that time could be secured. My role was to find facts. I even had to discuss with the board of Neste and try to convince them. And I remember those meetings because there was like 2 people on the board that say yes and the rest said no. And it was so hard to convince them to actually put in some money. And so it was an interesting first project for me.
Yeah, I mean, some might describe that as a baptism of fire. I mean, a couple of questions arise from that. You said sort of Keke Rosberg approached you. I mean, how, you said you're a university, like, how did he identify you as the guy that he wanted? And what was it like as a student making those pitches to senior business people?
Yeah, it was quite funny because I had had I had a big article in the Finnish business paper called Kauppalehti. It's like Finland's Financial Times or something, I don't know, about a concept that I had developed. Because when I started to research sponsorship, I noticed that it was the concept in itself was really old. It hadn't developed or evolved or anything. So I actually developed a new concept on the sponsorship concept, and so something that my idea was to develop actually sponsorship. And I wrote a big article about that in the business paper, and they for some reason read that and thought that I could be of help. And at that time, Mika's manager was not only Keke, but a Belgian guy called Didier Coton. He's still involved in Formula One, and he was married to Keke's sister, actually. So that was the connection. But Didier and Keke managed Mika at the time, and yes, for some reason they found they had read, or was it did maybe Keke had read the article or something, and they thought that I could participate and contribute to difficult task to find partnerships and sponsors from Finland. And I remember that Keke could fly in with his private jet to Helsinki, and a couple of times I remember even Nico was a small boy then, and they had he was sometimes staying at the in a suite in a hotel in Helsinki. And I, as a young researcher, drove my old Volkswagen from Turku, a city near Helsinki where I was studying, to Helsinki. And so it was two different worlds that met. First of all, Keke and his, the world he was coming from, Monaco and private jets, and I came from a researcher with no money, and but we I think we had the same ideas about sponsorship, and that was something that clicked in a way that we came along very well. It was a fruitful and really interesting to work with him. Yeah, and he's a clever guy. He's a clever guy, and really, he understood the value of Formula One in a way that nobody in Finland, I think, did at the time. He was, he was far ahead of everybody else.
Pardon?
I learned a lot from Keke at the time.
I can imagine, yeah. I mean, what a world to enter. And, you're still in and around the world today. I guess my question before we move on to what your next business was is, back then, it's sort of early 90s. I remember starting to watch Formula One in that era. And I didn't know that Mika Hakkinen was going to become, so successful and become a two-time world champion. As someone that was sort of close to his attempt to get into Formula One and the sort of sponsorship side for him. Did you see something in Mika Hakkinen in those days that led you to believe he would be the champion later on?
He was really highly rated in Finland, and at that time there were a couple of Finnish young drivers that were really talented, and I worked in the background, so I hadn't anything basically to do with Mika or the racing. So I have just met, I think, Mika once or twice. Once I remember I met him at Spa, but so I was working in the background. But Mika was really highly rated, and I think that's even more highly rated than JJ. Who was also really, really good. And that was, a golden era in Finland with Mika Häkkinen, Mika Salo, JJ Lehto, and a couple of more that didn't make it. But thanks to Keke, Mika and JJ made it to Formula One. So, but he was really highly rated, really talented. He was something special.
Before we talk about Sport Telecom, my question to you, maybe don't feel obliged to answer this on behalf of the entire nation of Finland, but I think everybody wants to know, what is it about Finland that makes fantastic drivers?
Yeah, this is a country with not more than 5.4 million people. It's a small country. We have 4 seasons with winter and, everything. It's something in the genes, I think. I don't know, but it's a saying that Finns are good at all sports where you need a helmet. It's something in the mentality that if it's dangerous, if it's considered dangerous, if you have to take risks. Finns are really calm people, and it's something in the nature. Of course, the winter with the ice driving, car control, it's really, really helpful. in a way to develop some skills. But if you look at history from Keke's time, there is more or less a Finnish driver in every decade, and that's so special. Also, bearing in mind that the drivers are not having any money; they bring almost no money to the Formula One teams. They have all made it to Formula One without big budgets from Finnish corporations, but because Finnish corporations usually say no to Formula One, and especially today when they consider it, environmental. Still, even though Formula One is doing a wonderful job with sustainable fuels and everything, Finnish corporations don't consider it as possible to sponsor. So it's amazing that these drivers have made it with no budgets, just raw talent.
You see the raw talent, and maybe, I don't know, it's hard not to stereotype, but every driver that you could think of, we have Valtteri Bottas on the grid today, but going all the way back seems to have that talent. So
yeah.
Going through the decades, as you said, so it says here in sort of the start of the new millennium in early 2000, you formed a new company called Sports Telecom, and this was, not many of our listeners will remember, but there was a time before mobile phones.
Yeah.
But you were sort of in the cutting edge, looking at telemetry data and thinking how to apply that in the sort of mobile space. So could you tell us a bit more about Sports Telecom and what you were trying to achieve?
Yeah, it was in 1999, 2000, the millennium, and Finland was in the front end of, forefront of mobile technology with Nokia. It was a cluster of companies in Finland that were, really good at mobile technology and mobile games, for instance. And we formed a company. I formed a company, Sports Telecom, with Stefan Johansson, former Formula One driver. And the reason why I met with Stefan was that Keke and Stefan had been neighbors in England, actually, so they knew each other well. And so I got a contact with Stefan, and he had been thinking of the same concept, how to use mobile technology in Formula One in a commercial way. And we developed this idea that, I think it was Stefan who said that, every Formula One car had this telemetry data, and all the data that the engineers receive and analyze, and why not use that in a commercial way? So we came up with an idea that, if somebody watching Formula One could get data from a running Formula One car to the mobile phone. So that was actually the basic idea. And we started a company, Sports Telecom, and the aim of that project was actually to launch the first mobile service that was based on Formula One telemetry data. And we know today that it was too ambitious, but we got Ericsson and Capgemini, a French consultancy company, technology at that time, involved. So almost 2 years we developed a platform, we developed a concept, and even tested it. And when it was ready to be tested, we presented it to, or Stefan presented the idea to Bernie Ecclestone. And I think it was at Monaco's Grand Prix that he met with Bernie Ecclestone, and he, told Bernie about this idea. And we had some conversations and some mails sent, and he thought that, it sounds like a really interesting idea, but I need $500,000 in upfront. Then you can start looking at the concept more closer with Formula One involved. So that was the start of it, and we did a lot of research, but the challenge at that time was that the networks were too, everything was too slow. It didn't work. It was really limited data that we could use live or actually to a mobile phone. So it more or less ended with that. And then we realized something, Bernie Ecclestone, he said that, everything is protected in Formula One. You can't use anything, not a sound, not a picture, nothing without my permission. And you need to pay a big upfront. Then we learned how protected Formula One was and still is. They of course, the property of a Formula One team is, the pictures, the sounds, everything. And that's really valuable. It was then already, and it still is. So then we started to think about a different strategy, how to use these, licenses to be able to use sounds, pictures, videos, everything. So it ended up that we launched mobile phone games, mobile, screenshots. It was mobiles. For instance, Williams Formula One team recorded Formula One sounds to us from, I think it was from Jerez, from a test that they recorded sounds. And then we launched these sounds as ring signals to mobile phones. So that was Sports Telecom.
Wow. I mean, so far ahead of your time that the mobile network couldn't carry the data.
Yeah, I actually laughed the other day when Formula One had announced a new partnership, and one of the, I think it was one of the features of that cooperation was that they will use the data from the, from the telemetry data for something. I don't know for what, but I thought that, we did this 1999 or 2002, I think it was. So we were, more than 20 years ahead of everything. So too early.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you've also managed to change your strategy. And it says here that you had agreements not just in sort of Formula One world, but in brands in IndyCar, MotoGP, and Rally, and even with Boeing. So was that just differentiating the product and aligning it with the brand, or sort of?
Yeah, we tried to build a portfolio of rights, basically. That we tried to get as many, agreements as possible with strong brands that could work as, mobile phone games and sounds and things like that. So I think we had 15 or 20 different licenses in the portfolio. It was a tricky business because, for instance, games at that time, it took a long time to develop a game. We didn't develop the games. We used Finnish, German game developers, and companies that developed mobile services. So we didn't do it. We just had the rights and the licenses, and we negotiated all the deals. And but the problem was at the time that it could take 1.5, almost 2 years to develop a good game. So it took too long. When the game was ready, the team in Formula One or rally or MotoGP, they had changed maybe branding of the team, and the drivers were new. So much had happened in 2 years. So basically, sometimes we had to start all over again, more or less. So today it's much easier to develop mobile services compared to what it was early 2000 and mid 2000. One example was that we had an agreement with the Williams Formula One team, and it was a great cooperation. I really loved working with Williams and the brand and everything. But at that time, they got AT&T as title partner suddenly in the middle of our agreement, and a AT&T branded mobile game. When we went to Orange or Vodafone or some other operator, they say, yeah, it's a great game, but we are not going to promote AT&T. so yeah, it was a exciting project also. And as I said, I loved working with the Formula One teams at that time. We learned a lot. We learned a lot about how important it is to, have the licensing rights to everything, and to how protected Formula One is. And of course, other sports too. MotoGP, we had, for instance, Nicky Hayden, world champion in MotoGP, and who's not with us anymore. But we had Scott Dixon and some IndyCar drivers too. So yeah, it was a great project.
It's fascinating, and it does sound like you learned a lot. And so today you're the sort of co-founder of Spomotion Analytics. Where I suppose you're applying all of the wisdom that you've built up over the years. So I was really intrigued because it says, we dig deep into the networks of sports and find fascinating things. So can you tell us more about Spomotion Analytics and what it is you're trying to achieve?
My first, it goes back basically to my first touch with Formula One and with the Keke Rosberg, because it was so hard to convince the Finnish industry to sponsor Mika Häkkinen. It was so hard. So we needed to find something that they could say that this is interesting. This is why we can think about being So I already then said to Keke, and we said that we need to understand how the partnership network in Formula One looks like. We need to understand, are there any competitors to Neste Oil? Are there any customers? Are there any potential customers? We wanted to understand how the network looked like. So I did that job already then. At that time, it was difficult, you barely had internet. So, and to find all the information about all the companies, and that was impossible, basically. But we did a big job to understand how Neste as a company could be involved in Formula One and how they could make business in Formula One. Because they said to us, we are not happy to just put a sticker on the car and bring some customers to races. We need our money back. And that was how we started to think, how can they get the money back? And the only thing we found out was that, if we find customers to Neste, then it's possible. So a couple of years ago, we started, Stefan and I basically thought that why not do the same job again in different sports? And I started to gather data, to gather information of all partners in Formula One and other sports. A lot of focus have been on Formula One because it suits so well in this idea we have. And so that's the background, and we did this in without any without more or less telling anybody. We just gathered data for a couple of years, and now we start to have a good data bank that we can do analysis, find interesting things that is possible only with a big data bank.
And it's really interesting to hear that you're teaming up with Stefan Johansson again.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a successful partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Stefan is, he's an artist, and he's focusing on a lot of that with his watches and paintings and everything. But he really is switched on when it comes to new ideas and to try different things. So he found this also really, really fascinating to do these analytics and to do comparisons with the Indy Racing League and Formula One, NASCAR, Formula One, Premier League. We try to understand what's happening in all these, and we find really interesting things that I think companies that are thinking about maybe partnering up in Formula One or some other sport, they can use the data and have so that's one idea.
Wow. Well, if anyone's listening and they might be interested in finding out more, what's the website for Spomotion?
It's Spomotionanalytics.com, and we have one problem with the analytics wording is that I think it's a good name of Spomotion Analytics, but when we send mails with Spomotion Analytics, it's usually ends up in the trash mail because of the analytics. So I think we have to find another email address.
No, of course. Where does the word Spomotion come from? Because obviously it's followed you through at least two of your companies. Where did you come up with the name?
That was from the research I did. I actually worked a lot with a doctor's thesis, but I didn't finish it because life came in between, as they say, with children and everything. So I had to abandon it. But that was the developed version of sponsorship, so it became Spomotion. So that's the concept I basically developed already as a researcher, and it's something that I would like to implement again in a way, because I think that we talk about partnership today and cooperation and not so much about sponsorship, because if you look at modern Formula One partnerships, they are basically Spomotion. It's it's a lot of business happening. It's a lot of things happening in the partnerships, and so that's basically what Spomotion is all about. And it would be great to to maybe implement it in a way, and that's why it follows me.
So obviously don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I have a couple of more questions. The first one's reflective, and then hopefully they get a bit more fun. But you gave a really sort of evocative picture of a young man that drove a Volkswagen, and he was entering a new world. Meeting the likes of Keke Rosberg flying in from Monaco. So what advice would you give to that young man looking back on Bjorn in 1990? What advice would you give him now?
Yeah, I think that I should have been more, believed in myself, that to try to introduce a new concept in the academic world, that's a challenge. It's maybe not, it's even a bigger challenge than trying to find sponsorship money for Mika Häkkinen. I should have been more stubborn maybe, and not just keep working on it. And already at that time, I realized that it was something that Formula One teams already at that time found it interesting, and I had some contacts with teams, and I maybe could have done more than I did, but I tried to do something about it now, and that's I'm really happy about that, because I think this is what we are doing with Spomotion Analytics. It's a lot of fun. I find it so interesting, and it's so amazing the feedback I get and we get, and people in the industry, sports industry, Formula One industry, think that we have something different. There's a lot of information about viewers, media time, and all the communication and media side of Formula One, but not that many working with data related to the partnership networks itself. And I think that's great that we get that feedback.
It's really fascinating, and it sounds again like, going back to the early 90s, that you were ahead of your time.
Maybe we are too much ahead of our
Yeah.
times again, but because we have what I haven't told, what we haven't talked about is that we are also using the data that we are gathering for trying to understand how investment funds based on the listed companies in Formula One would work. So that is something we are also working on, that we haven't, told much about yet, because it's quite new. We have done that. We have been doing a lot of research around it, doing simulations and things like that. So that's one spin-off, more or less, of the analytics work we are doing.
Wow. So we'll keep an eye out for that, investment funds, investment opportunities linked to publicly traded companies that have partnerships in Formula One. We'll keep an eye out.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So let me ask you 3 relatively quick questions to close the interview. The first, and they should all be fun, but we find out a bit about you. So you talked a bit about driving a Volkswagen many years ago. So now the question for you is, you can pick any car, any circuit in the entire world to do one hot lap. So where would that be? What car and what circuit?
I think it would be. I think it would be Spa, because that's an amazing track, and I would love to be able to have a good driver in a Porsche around Spa. I think that would be great.
I can imagine going through Eau Rouge, and
Yeah.
it sounds amazing.
I have been to Spa a couple of times, so it's so great track, and the environment and everything. And what we haven't talked about is that I forgot about it totally. That I have been managing Emma Kimiläinen, the female racing driver that did WV series and also raced at Spa. I did that for more than 10 years because now she's doing other things. But when she was racing, I had the opportunity to be, in the management team with the idea was that Stefan was managing her, but he's living in United States and everything, so it was so difficult. So I had to do a lot of the work here in Europe.
You've had such a fascinating life. There's even more that comes out at the end. Emma Kimiläinen, who has won more than one W Series race and came third in the championship as well at one point.
Yeah. I have been to many meetings with Emma during the years, talked to factory teams and everything. And the attitude was, it was, I don't know how to describe it, but I'm so glad that finally there's happening good things, that talented female drivers get the opportunity to become professional drivers. Emma Kimiläinen is absolutely one of the most talented people I have ever met in my life. And not only a racing driver, but she's so talented in many ways. And but it was such a struggle for a female to try to become a professional driver. There are many stories about Emma, but I'm glad that we see a progress in this racing world finally. So I hope that we will see that female Formula One driver in the coming 5 years.
I really hope so too, and you could hear the passion in your voice about how talented she is. And of course, you have obviously you haven't been sort of meeting as frequently these other drivers, but you've been close to some very legendary Finnish drivers, and to say that Emma Kimiläinen is one of the most talented people you've ever met, I mean, it's huge praise. So yeah,
yeah.
I hope you're right.
And,
yeah,
and I would so much have hoped that she would had got the opportunity already when she was young. She was so eager to show the world and everybody that she's good. So that maybe ended up that she was trying too hard, and sometimes it ended up in the barriers or something. So yeah, I can just a quick story.
Yeah, go on, please.
We had we had negotiated with a big German brand car manufacturer, and they decided to I was with her in Spain when she tested DTM Audi, and she was quickest of the female drivers, because at that time they wanted one female driver in the team, and Emma was only 18 then, and she was quickest. Rahel Frey was one of the drivers. She was really good too, but Emma was maybe slightly quicker than but Audi decided that Emma was too young, and she was too young. She was too young, too immature to maybe represent Audi in DTM. So they wanted somebody maybe a little bit older, and so they didn't pick her. And but she got the opportunity to do German Formula 3. That was the plan. And they arranged a test in Zandvoort, and Emma was supposed to test for 3 days. I regret that I couldn't go with her. She was alone in Zandvoort and 18 years old, testing for 3 days, supposed to test for 3 days. And she did it with Van Amersfoort and Fritz van Amersfoort. It's a fantastic team. It was then, it is still. Fritz is one of the, I highly respect, and he's been such a brilliant team manager, for many drivers that are in Formula One today. Max Verstappen is one of them. But Emma was supposed to test for 3 days. The first day, they walked around the track, and Fritz had said to Emma, this corner here, you can't clip it like, on the inside. You have to do it in a certain way. And so take it easy in the beginning and build the speed step by step. Emma was so eager to show everybody. She had never driven a Formula 3 car. And I think it was on third lap, she ended up in the barriers. And that was the end of the test. And it was the end of more or less her career also, because then Audi decided, she's not ready for Formula 3. And they put her in something that was called ADAC Masters in Germany. And for most of the season, her team partner was, driving in the same team, was Kevin Magnussen. And Kevin and Emma drove for Amersfoort in ADAC Masters, and they were really equal. Sometimes Kevin was quicker, sometimes Emma was quicker, and but we know that Kevin made it to Formula One, but Emma didn't. And that one test could have changed a lot for Emma. I'm really angry at myself that I wasn't there. She was, as I said, only 18 and so eager to show the world, and it ended up in the barriers.
I mean, thank you for sharing that story. Completely. I hadn't done my research, and I hadn't found out that you were the manager or part of the management team there.
I have never called myself a manager.
No, yeah.
It was maybe, Emma needed somebody to be there, negotiating with her. She was, especially when she was, today she is so, she handles everything herself. And she's a professional manager also, so she could manage drivers today, I think. But at that time, she needed somebody to keep her maybe calm sometimes also. So that's she did Swedish touring cars and things like that. And but that one crash that could have changed a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, clearly a very talented person, and maybe she is. It's a bit like your story about being 20 years too early. Maybe 20 years after that test, someone will get the same opportunity and make it to Formula One.
I really hope so. I haven't watched the Formula academies that well, but there are some really talented drivers.
So let's do a special Finnish edition of a game we like to play called Taxi Dinner Avoid. And this tests your diplomacy skills, among other things, because you have to tell us which driver of, let's say, any Finnish driver from history you would like to drive you to dinner, which Finnish driver you would like to have dinner with because they're so fascinating, And then which Finnish driver perhaps you would prefer to avoid? So taxi, dinner, avoid. Good luck.
Yeah, taxi. It would be great to have Mika Häkkinen driving the taxi. He has actually been in some of the Finnish movies doing that job. So I think taxi would be for sure Mika Häkkinen, and dinner with Keke. I, I would like to. It would be great to sit down and have a dinner with him. How much he remembers, it so much have happened in his life, so he might not even remember what happened early 90s when he was trying to, find the money in Finland. So it would be great to have that dinner with Keke and go through that period of time, how he struggled actually to find that seat for Mika, and it all turned out great, and he probably put a lot of own money to in the Mika's career in the beginning, but it was a good return on investment for sure. So it would be great to have that dinner, maybe in Helsinki. I think that would be the right place. Avoid. Wow, who would who would that be?
That's the hard one.
That's the hard one. Maybe Mika Salo. Maybe Mika Salo. I don't know. He's a character. I haven't met him that way, but maybe I say Mika Salo.
Okay, you did well. You did well. Well, congratulations. Is there anything else before I ask my final question, which is how we end every episode? Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we close?
It's I have had the privilege to be involved in some quite interesting projects, and I hope that I will have the privilege to be involved many more years. It's a fascinating world, Formula One. It's a difficult world, but it's really interesting to be, and especially today when it's happening so much development. When early 90s, when you went to a Formula One race and to the paddock area, I remember one time I had my wife with me. She was first time in the Formula One paddock, and it was an Italian team, not Ferrari, and they said, you can have a pasta dinner in that at that team. And we went there, and we came in, and there was. I got the feeling that we are not welcome here. So I remember I said to my wife that we go to another place. So we turned around and went out. Today it's so amazing what they have done with Formula One, and it's such a professional world. It's such a professional atmosphere, and so I hope that everybody thinking about working in Formula One and trying to make it to Formula One, now it's the time. It's never been this good environment and good opportunities that it is today. So maybe I could leave it with that.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm sure that our listeners will also be trying to reach out to you to ask what the lottery numbers are going to be in 20 years' time, because you seem to have a knack of predicting the future.
It's one of the worst things in business to be too early. So I think I laugh at the telemetry data idea we had, and we put a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of investments from Ericsson and Capgemini. They've actually saw it something totally unique, and So it's you know it's a good laugh today when we see that it has more or less not even happened today what we were trying to do in 2002.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time. My final question, which we always end the
Oh,
show with, is about pizza. So before I ask it, can I check that you enjoy the occasional pizza?
yeah, absolutely. Yes,
Brilliant.
yes.
Okay, so this is a very straightforward question, and our listeners love it. So can you tell us, Bjorn, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yeah, you know, in Finland, it's pineapple more or less on all pizzas. This is Italian uh, politician Berlusconi. He said that he have never ever tasted worse food than in Finland. So this country is not known for, you know, cuisine or good food.
Wow. Well,
So pineapple absolutely
so
okay in
yes.
Finland. Yes.
Oh wow, that's the best answer I think we've ever had. But don't Silvio Berlusconi, who's obviously no longer with us. Don't let him talk about Finland like that. That's unacceptable.
You know, yeah, the result was that they developed a pizza called Berlusconi.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a pizza called Berlusconi for many years in Finland. It was really popular. I
As a
can't
joke,
remember.
I love it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So we had a pizza called Berlusconi. So, but you know, the Finnish people's self-esteem was really down for many years after that Berlusconi comments on that, the worst food in the whole world, it's in Finland. But we have good
Yeah, but
chefs. Absolutely.
yeah, I wouldn't accept that. But look, Bjorn, it's been incredible hour with you. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time. I really
you.
appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. I was really, a little bit nervous because, as I said,
No.
my English is a little bit limited, so it's sometimes difficult to express myself. So I hope that the listeners understood what I was trying to say. So I hope so.
I'm sure they did. So, listeners, please give us a comment on this episode. Please give us a thumbs up or a 5-star review. I'm sure you agree with me, listeners, that this was a fascinating listen, and you've got a fantastic voice as well, Bjorn. So
Oh,
when you
yeah.
do your next business, it can have singing as well as analytics and
Yeah, I
stuff.
have been thinking about that actually. So, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, good.